So we are recording. Good morning. I think we're all US sort of Eastern time zone in the most general. No, Rosa is, yeah, no, Rosa's in the Eastern time zone as well. So good morning and welcome to our July Author Jam for the Collaborative Change Library. Theo here at Nexus at my library. It is good to see all of you, some of you at home, some of you in campers on this 4th of July week, first week of July. I'm grateful to have you all here and be able to connect this morning. I was thinking about last night, is there something that I want to ask of these guys specifically? And then was teaching my MBA class last evening. And one of the things that we covered was the idea of situational engineering. And one of the students said that feels a little bit like learning how to manipulate people, if that's a leadership tool, situational engineering. And we sort of went back and forth. And I said, well, is it manipulation or is setting the stage? And then all this language came pouring into my head about setting a container and, trying to control what you can to have people be in a good space. So one of the things I might be curious about, if that resonates with you, I really wonder, like, what's the last time that you've been in a spot or in a situation where you helped engineer, to use that term, a situation or create a container or just hold space for somebody or a group of people to come together and accomplish, achieve something, connect together. I think in many ways that is, in my mind, one of the primary things of what I'm trying to do, but maybe I'm not always as intentional about that as I could be. So that would be one invitation to think about what's a really good container you've been able to create or situation you've been able to help engineer for others to be collaborative.
Well, I'll throw mine in first because Theo really helped me design this whole use of 75 minutes. At the 50th annual Management and Organization Behavior Teaching Conference earlier in June, I had a session in which
Am I the only one that lost Dave?
No. The universe did not want us to hear
put
about
in the
the
book.
session.
Dave,
Dave,
we lost about the last minute of what you said. Hello, Yashim. I'm going to give you just a brief, since you joined us right after we dove in. I was welcoming everyone and then asked about what is a good container that you've helped create. What's an environment, a way of holding space, or this idea of engineering a situation for others to be collaborative. And Dave dove right in, and then we lost his audio for about a minute.
Am I back now?
You're back now.
All right. So, so therefore, that is the meaning of life that I just said in that last minute. And hopefully you'll all be able to go forward feeling much more uplifted. But I'll speed it up. We wanted them to use some of the conjectures to get the experience that Peter and I hope they would as readers. And so, but we had to work for hours on getting the slides right, figuring out a way to have the conjectures available virtually so they could see them on their phones, as well as having them printed out for the conventional readers. And then, all time really carefully spaced out so there'd be time for them to get into it and then discuss it. Now, who are they? They're all management organization professors. Some, like I had retired, but considered pretty prestigious in that organization. And one gentleman from Australia who's the editor of a special journal of the Management Education Journal, who happens to be focusing on an article with Derek Dent and me on Peter Vail's work. So it was all of a piece, and it was definitely engineered in the best sense of it. The social part was really crucial, because what you're trying to do is tee up, waves of thought discussion, practice, thought, discussion, practice, and hopefully make an overall impression. And the feedback was good. So that was my my last attempt at engineering.
Dave.
I'll go. I had one yesterday. I had hosted a discussion for a network of practitioners for open leadership. And it was just holding space as host, the hosting role for a conversation between a couple practitioners from New Zealand and their work in Vietnam primarily. And it was, again, there was very little engineering that was done in that container. And we didn't really talk much about, we had a little tilling of the soil for that space prior to the conversation. And that I had some thoughts about my design for what I wanted to engineer in that space. And then when I shared that with Rob, who was the primary, one of the pair that was doing it, he came back, no, we want to talk about, I don't want to talk about the why and the what or be a talking head. I want to talk about what we actually do and how it has an impact. And so my design ended up being modified by Rob's design, and we co-created that space for conversation. And I had this design going in that they were going to do gather, welcome, converse, then Q&A, and then close. And then it totally didn't work out that way. But it worked out in a fantastic way because Rob and Sherry, they got to talk about what they wanted to talk about. They had the passion around it, and it inspired several questions that were actually in the room that people cared about. And so, and I came back around, and after poking in a little bit to kind of nudge the conversation a little bit, we did a closing like we would normally do in an open space, just kind of pass around, invite, and you can pass or go, and there it went. So that was my encountering an alternative design to what we engineered on that space, and I thought it was pretty cool, very co-creative. And I'm in.
You were willing to give a light hand to your friend and participate in a different way in that moment, which is a good judgment. The word situational engineering, Theo, I think of you and Rijon, and I'm thinking it's a little bit more like arrangement, or being a musical arranger, in a sense, cutting a sense of what you want people to do. Well, maybe that's too prescriptive too. I can't think of the right word, but it sounds more like jazz hands than it does, making bridges. And
I think you're right onto something there.
Yeah, I had a lead sheet. I kind of knew the tune we were going to play, but when we got together to talk about the tune, it ended up improvisational.
There you go.
And we went through the form and structure and kind of played the tune as it designed, and then we agreed on where it was going to end and did a fade out. So yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I
was just going to say, I think the concepts and the work that Keith McCandless has done in liberating structures really gets at the notion that structure enables, and it just depends on, that's where the art of management and leadership comes in. It's really nuanced, contextual, and it requires applying some principles. The thing is, it's not a mystery. So the thing that I would offer is that they can go by that. There are certain principles that work, and if you apply them to the structures that you create, then it can create generative possibilities within a group.
Shall I go?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just tracking several threads here. One is the dance between what we imagine, envision, plan beforehand, and then what actually happens. I love the quote, plans are useless and planning is essential. And then there's the whole thing about metaphor, right? And what different metaphors evoke. And so I just find it fascinating that, we call something an outline and it feels one way, but in Art of Hosting, we call it a flow and it feels a different way. In some ways, it's the same thing, right? But a metaphor is important. And so the first thing, and just to comment on what you said, Steve, structure can enable or stifle, and they're both totally, real, I think. But the thing is that certain words become really negative. So situational engineering, I'm like, oh, I can see why that would really trigger lots of people. Right now, I started out as an engineer in engineering school, so it doesn't particularly trigger me, but it really makes me think of the whole question of power, because, people were some people were really freaked out by the whole T group, Rogerian and countergroup movement, and thought this was social engineering to convert everybody into a liberal. And no, but seriously, there's some pretty scary, like, conspiracy, born again Christian conspiracy theory writings on the evils of this, humanistic movement that is seeking to convert people. And so this ended up coming up a lot in my dissertation, because I ended up looking at this whole thing of the power of facilitators and how some people really view it very negatively, right? And so I looked a lot at, what is the power of facilitators and what does that power consist of? And what are the different kinds of power, and power with and power over and all that kind of stuff. Just to say that, though, that even as lovely and supportive as we envision our work, it can trigger people, that we're engaging in social engineering. And even like open space, my friend Tom Atlee has, stories about people who felt like at a particular conference, partly because of things that had happened before, that open space was going to be too restrictive. And so they went in and they totally messed with the chart to like totally mess up the open space, so it's like, it's all relative. I love context. I do think constraints can be really good. And I'll just end with my summer reading. I've just started it. Alicia Cuadrero's Context Changes Everything, How Constraints Create Coherence.
That's a cool one. And who wrote that?
Then Alicia Cuadrero is a Cuban American philosopher. And basically what she is talking about is how the, technocratic, positivistic worldview, it's like humans aren't even real in that, because, everything you experience interiorly is just this like black box. It doesn't matter. It's all billiard balls. I mean, this stuff that we know, but she just goes into it really, really deep. And she's creating this alternative worldview for explaining newness and emergence and creativity. And yeah, she's awesome.
Sounds like a great read.
P.S. I have very little time to read right now because I'm still trying to find a place to live in Cambridge and declutter my current space so that I can share my house while I'm mostly not here. So yeah, that's my life right now. Check.
I wanted to jam
Can you
on
put
Rosa
that
there for a second, but
I wanted to get the link. I want to get that. I want to find that book.
I wanted to go, but before I go, Yashim, Lisa, or did you want to check in?
Yes, thank you. It's so lovely. This is now my second time joining this. Lisa, thank you for sending me the link. It's so great to be a part of this group because there is it really is lovely to connect, to see what you are going through, and especially that there is I didn't realize that there's like an underlying question which Theo told me, so thank you, Theo. And so you're basically bringing up what you're doing within a certain structure, so it's really wonderful. And the atmosphere that was created, which would induce collaboration, is the question, right? Yes. So for me, this is exactly what I'm writing about. Actually, the comparative learning is because we do this as a part of our mediation on the ground when we're dealing with the communities. And remember, we deal with, of course, very angry and very upset communities. And the method which is a servant, it's a method for servant facility. It puts the facilitator into a very servant role, which is very similar to what you were talking about earlier on. And it brings, peer-to-peer conversation, and that takes out the ego. It makes an instant connection between people, and so because people are learning from each other, not from the experts. They also learn from the experts, by the way. There's a place for that, but it's not only limited to that. Whereas a lot of mediation practice around the world is about just the facilitator telling them, all right, you two groups, please talk to each other and cuddle up. It never works like that. There's a bit of that, and there are also very good facilitators. There are good mediators, and they bring experts. They're all great and lovely, but it's nothing like learning from someone who's done it. So for me, that's, I guess, the biggest and the best environment I've seen, which is the answer to what Theo said, is really what I'm already working on. So it's so exciting that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people discussing this. Beautiful.
Yeshim, could you say a little bit more about your context? So you said you're dealing with angry communities and the facilitator and servant role, and I wasn't here when you were here before. So if you could just fill in a little bit more about where you're working and what this is, I would find it super helpful.
Yeah, so
Okay, well,
in the interest of hitting pause for just 1 second, I apologize, Yeshim, with you coming in just a moment late. I was debating, should we do our usual round of introductions? And I looked around the screen, it's like, no, all these people have been together. So normally we do that, and I apologize for sort of skipping over that part of setting our container. But yes, I don't think Rosa and Yeshim, you guys have met. So if you can just share a little bit more, and then maybe I'll bring it back as you share, just to take a moment to share who you are and where you are and why you're here in your responses, so that we're connected in that way as well.
Sure, I'll just be very, very quick because a number of you here know already that. But Rosa, thank you for asking. I'm conflict mediator, but I work not with families and others, and then, well, sometimes employees, but mostly internationally within communities of conflict around the world. So that's the kind of what I do, and I have a lot of opinions, my own opinions about what's the right way or not. And the bit that I'm writing is about this particular method, which I find very of all the methods that I've tried and seen on the ground, this is the one which induced best collaboration.
Wonderful. Does it have a name?
Yeah, comparative learning.
Comparative learning. Thank you. Okay.
But thank you for the question. Happy to send you links and whatever resource you need.
Thank you. I would appreciate that.
And she's got some webinars she's done that we can put links to that you can hear. She's done
Yeah,
two.
it was really
She's
good.
done 2 sessions on them that we have that are on our playlist.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I look forward to that.
Yeah.
And you, Rosa?
So my background is in organization development, and I just finished a dissertation on the facilitation of citizens councils, which is like a mini citizens assembly, or kind of related to a citizens jury in Austria. And they're called Bürgerräte, and they're facilitated using an approach called dynamic facilitation, which is kind of the solutions-oriented approach, where there's a lot of empathic reflection and deep listening to people, so that they tend to go deeper than they do in a regular meeting. So that's it in a nutshell.
That's fascinating. That's amazing.
It's a very important nutshell. I mean, to get people to go deep, even if they're neighbors, you know, in one country, and perhaps think they know everything about each other and the situation at hand, the discoveries must have been quite impressive, Rosa, that oh, I never knew that. As long as they're willing to admit it.
Yeah, people do. It's a very transformative process for the participants. They're chosen at random. It's like kind of called a public lottery in some places, kind of like a jury, in that, you know, jury of your peers. But instead of to decide on whether somebody is innocent or guilty in a criminal case, it's to come up with what is in the public good or the common good with regard to a particular policy issue. So, yeah.
Wow. We need that over here. Bring it over.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a really interesting nuance there that I sometimes wonder about out loud, in terms of what is the both cultural and historic context for people to be willing to have those kinds of communications, conversations at the citizenship level. And even that citizen label, as Rosa will point out to you if you dig a little bit deeper into what Rosa does, and I should probably share the link to your session as well, Rosa, when we do our follow-up that Lisa and I send out. For me, as somebody who grew up in East Germany and, you know, had parents that talked about the stories they heard from their parents and grandparents about the wars, and then now moving to the US and also hearing stories, but just the way that those stories were told differently. And I wonder how big of an impact that has on when you're in a community where the grandparents will tell stories about, hey, we had to work together or else it wouldn't have worked. Like there was this, I have visions of the, I guess the best way I can think of translating is like the brick brigades, right? When if you were trying to clean up a bombed house, you had a row of sometimes 100 people that were just handing the bricks down the road to stack them up so you could build a new building. Not one individual could have done that. There were no backhoes, there was no machinery to do it. It was all by hand. So you needed 100 people to get the job done. Compared to what feels increasingly like a me, myself, and I, maybe me and my family sort of consideration when it comes to what's important. How many people have no idea who their neighbors are, don't know their neighbors' names, don't know, you know, that connectivity feels like it's very different in some places and in some cultural and historic contexts.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think context makes a difference, and cultures differ a lot in terms of their sort of solidarity orientation. I do want to say that experiments that have taken place here in the US have been really favorable. Like, for instance, the America in One Room deliberative polling thing that was done, where they brought 150 different US people, again, chosen at random, for 3 days. I think it was somewhere in Texas. And when people have a chance to hear one another's stories, the kind of heart opening that happens is real, and it's powerful. And then there's a question of how do we get the political will to do it and to, you know, invest in it and all that kind of stuff, which is a different issue. But I think it can happen here. It just hasn't very much. There's been a lot more of this kind of public participation in Europe. But then there's a beautiful a video done about a citizens' assembly in Malawi, Africa, that was just amazing. So, you know, I think humans, even though we come in all kinds of different flavors and cultures and talents and all that, I think that there is you know, it's like we all need clean air to breathe. We all need clean water. We all need, you know, healthy food. We all really benefit from carrying human attention where everyone is welcome and everyone's story is appreciated. And it does seem to make a difference.
Let me grab a mic real quick so I can drop it. Lisa, Steve, you guys want to check in,
Gotta have hear from
react, resonate?
the camper here.
Yeah, if you missed it, I'm in my hometown, so about 3 more hours north from where I normally am in Michigan. So I guess there's a lot of things that were brought up. I'm thinking a lot about liberating structures, which Dr. Katie brought up because of my technical team. So now we're, getting very micro into a squad of 9 and how they interact, and because they're very technical, they tend to love their silos. And so pulling out of those are very difficult. So it just reminded me of one, I almost want to call it an exercise as opposed to a container, because it was probably more than 15 years ago, and it was the same team, but I was a member of the team. And at the time, it was when it was huge to have your team do Strengths Finder. And so everyone had their results, and my manager, he just said, do something for the team. We're going to meet for a couple days. And so I kind of took that, and rather than sharing, which was what a lot of people do, is, they have you report out, what your strengths are. And I just thought, why don't I have the team tell them what their strengths are? Like, what do I see in Teo? Because I work with Teo. And gave them the list. And so it was such a great couple days, because we started out with telling the others what we saw in them, and the ones that weren't on their list were the most impactful because they didn't see it in themselves. And so it created a really good couple days, because we started up right out with something positive that came from somebody else. It wasn't me like saying, well, I'm really strategic.
That was great.
Such. And something else that also came up much later in my managing a study group for my certification, someone actually said, well, it's kind of not cool to make someone share their personal info, right? Because someone else can judge them on it. They can see the con to the pro. So I was like, that's a great point. So I'm glad that in that exercise we didn't force that. Like, we gave the option that they could talk about their strengths, but we kind of flipped it around. So that was the one that came to mind. And right now I'm just listening to the raindrops on the top of the camper. So it's a little, I'm tipping my hat to Ryan for a little musical.
Raindrops are falling on my head.
Yeah, they were earlier when I was outside. So, but that's
Don't go chasing waterfalls. That one. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have to jump in on that one. You guys know the TLC song Chasing Waterfalls? Most of you have heard it. My son is sitting in the back seat out of nowhere. He goes, Dad, who is this Jason they're singing about? I go, what? Jason, why are they singing about Jason? I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, Jason Waterfalls. What a weird last name. Who is this guy? Why are they singing about Jason Waterfalls?
Sounds like a Native American.
I was gonna go to Eurythmics though. Here Comes the Rain Again.
Come the rain again. Oh, yeah.
I can't stand the rain. Okay, I'll stop.
Right, we're getting on a tangent there.
Steve, we're saving you for the last, because you also have an introductory paragraph you want to get some feedback on.
I'd love that. Are you all ready?
We're ready.
I gotta see Ryan's face during this. His face is my thermometer of all things. He should be like you should join me on a bunch of stuff and be like the Ed McMahon face. Just don't show up drunk. That's all. But you could, if you all know Ed McMahon, he was Johnny Carson's sidekick. Very good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to read you an introduction to an article that's going to come out in September, October, in that range with the ODR. It's on leadership. And I'm leading an initiative on doctoral education. I fundamentally believe that we can transform the world through doctoral education in OD&C, not in any degree. I'm saying specifically doctoral education in OD&C can change the world. So let me read you the introduction that a group of us are putting together from the initiative. And this is, it's due at the top of the hour, so I got to read this to them. So the title for right now is OD&C Doctoral Education, one of two subtitles, Leading Career Choices Across the Lifespan or Transforming the World Across the Lifespan. So here we go. The calls for elevating the human side of change as a strategic pillar are loud and clear, specifically for businesses, nonprofits, and society. We offer that the field of organizational development and change can lead the transformation of the world through doctoral education. The most compelling example found in our history is Kurt Lewin. Kurt Lewin, one of the most influential and social behavioral scientists, continues to have a profound impact on our world today through publications based on his action and applied research. If you search on YouTube for Kurt Lewin and dissertation, you will find his original doctoral level research with Ron Lippitt on the impact of different forms of government and leadership. His body of research has transformed our world in a variety of energizing and generative ways. Today, we are witnessing significant trends that professional and academic scholars, along with the general public, are calling downright scary. For example, you can ask artificial intelligence, AI, applications, and robots about all sorts of things related to change in organizations, communities, and individuals. You can get a variety of thoughtful prompts, or you will get a variety of thoughtful prompts and guidelines from AI for all sorts of things. The difference is that AI can't do the relationship parts of change like humans can. At the end of the day, AI can't help a leader, consultant, researcher, or educator empower people in specific contexts, aware of the team within the environment. Consider AI with our outmoded industrialized education system of Rosen Isles, where students are trained to do what they are instructed to do as compliant workers, checking their mind, body, spirit, and emotion at the door. The result is scary. As a result of these trends, we offer that there will be 2 and eventually 3 classes of workers, beginning with those who are managed by AI and those who will manage AI. What will exponentially increase over time is the notion of the rote work done by robots and software. Robots and software applications will be able to do higher executive function level tasks. The robots and software will do it 24 hours per day, 7 days a week. It will learn and remove mistakes, being very precise. It will use its human relations algorithms to gently apply human behavior rules in the supervisions of human workers who don't or can't complete tasks, innovate, or build relationships. Hence, AI will be able to manage those who don't want to or can use their executive function. The human beings in the situation will not be able to add value at the same level of robots and applications. Hence, these humans will become a third-class worker in the hierarchy of work. There will be those who manage AI that manages people who are comfortable being told what to do, and the third class of people who are not able to add value. In this article, we explored a generative opportunity for our world through OD&C doctoral education, not possible with any other doctoral degree. We present 3 trends on a collision course that beg 2 questions that we will explore here. What do we want? What do we do now? And how can doctoral education in OD&C make a difference? So that's the introduction.
There's a lot going on there, Steve, in a few paragraphs, in a good way. But I think perhaps what we hadn't talked about in some of the discussion groups for the new doctorate was what you're pointing out now, which is the sudden, not so sudden, but sudden rise of AI in human experience in every context. And I think that is a driver of change, and the programmatic way of developing people who can lead and facilitate and even manage that, particularly the top level, the first level, with AI, going to be ahead of the game. So that I like what I've heard so far. It'll be fun to try to prepare that person, just kind of be a sprinter in regard to learning.
Was what I shared obvious to you all? Did I make connections that were obvious? Is that kind of a boring introduction?
I just come in there. I think the managed by AI, managing AI, I think putting that at the center and the who are we excluding from that? I think that's an interesting vein to go.
Yeah.
And I think it inspired me to think about something is that, well, if we're managed by AI, we are supplicating ourselves that if we've taught people to be compliant, and if you're now complying with the machine, you're granting that machine legitimacy, credibility, and authority to lead. You're surrendering to this machine.
Mhm.
And then we're talking about, and then they're humans who don't feel valued, but then there's this whole other class of humans who are, those of us who are with spirit and carbon and water, who are not electrified, and that where's the position for us? And then maybe that assertion about it, that the fertile ground for those people who are connected to their deeper humanity is within the OD and change practice. So yeah, just the topic, that's where it
Yeah, I
sent me.
love it. No,
So,
thanks. I'd just love to hear reactions. I'll come back to the recording. It'll influence how I work on this. Other reactions?
oh, the other thing, I dislike the word leading. I like transformation better as the start. So
Yeah. I think one of the things is the whole issue is on leadership, so I have to work the word leading in. Yeah. I hear you. That's why I lead towards transforming the world across the lifespan. I lean towards that one. The other one is to placate those that want to make sure it's connected to leadership.
So I'll add my reaction a little bit, and I wouldn't say that it was obvious, although I can see where pieces of it are. I think that hearing it got me thinking, and I would hope it would get others thinking of their own context and their own work. Because I think I'm in a little bit of a unique position that I finished my EMOD, so I have the context of organization development, but then I have 20 plus years of technology, which one of the things in the week before coming on vacation was a town hall, you could call it, of where Microsoft is joining with Thomson Reuters on AI. And so then here leaders talk about it and explain it, and how, first of all, not new, just a new context of AI today, of ChatGPT set on LLM, and then to also then somehow come to my hometown and have moons align that somebody who grew up here works for a very powerful cybersecurity company, and have him talk about what are the dangers, etc. So I think that for me, at least initially, what you said, Dr. Katie, just had me start to connect all three, right?
Yeah.
OD&C with what I've done for 20 plus years and all that I'm learning and doing within my company. I don't know what the percentage is now, but Thomson Reuters at one point owned 33% of the information market. I don't know how that has changed over time, but so being in that for so long, and then also having these tech connections, and to me, as Dave said, just a good thing to think about of what does that end up meaning. And so that's just where I am right now. I don't have any conclusions, just that's what I started connecting all those conversations. So
Wow. That's amazing. You're at the nexus for change.
yeah, exactly.
The thing is there's an interesting assumption that we might all be making, or some of us, and is that people want to think for themselves. That people are happier when they think for themselves. And I'm not saying that you are thinking that way, but I do find that there's this idea that there's going to be people there, and I'm seeing it already with my students who I've been seeing use ChatGPT to answer questions like on the discussion board. They're in a hurry and they want something else to do the thinking for them, to integrate or to kind of think at a next higher level of abstraction, like on Bloom's hierarchy of learning, from rote to integration and application, to creation and so forth at the highest level. There are people that, kind of want to be told what to do, and they're going to be happy being managed by a very nice, polite AI that won't get mad at them, will tell them all the right things. There's going to be people marrying their AIs, which they already are doing now in Japan and in other places. I can show you videos of that. People when I share my future of work and workers talk, I show a video of a person and then they marry their AI. And I gave the talk to a group of leaders showing that in the glass industry, manufacturing and supply chain. And the guy goes, why? He was so mad. Why? Kind of, Ryan, you're red person. I'm not sure what you were mad at, but
Yeah. Well,
why, right? Like, why? Why are they? Why? And he was just like, why? And I said, because they want that. But that doesn't make that they don't want. I go, what if that person wants to be in a relationship with an AI and is perfectly happy? Who are we to say that person can't have that if that's what they want? Oh, because we could step in and say, you're not allowed to have a relationship with that AI.
well, yeah.
42% of people would have sex with robots.
Oh, wow. Where to go with that?
We
Okay,
got to listen
Rosa.
to Yasmin now. While I'm thinking about erasing that image. Yasmin, you've been
Yeshin.
really reacting.
Rosa,
I thought-
Yeshin, but Rosa also raised her hand.
Yeah, go ahead, Yeshim. I'll go after you.
Thank you. Steve, no, that's very interesting. I have two thoughts as reactions. One is we are very scared of the ChatGPTs and what's going on. But I remember similar things when internet, the Google search came up, and I think these new big technological developments always scare us, and it actually doesn't end. Yeah, actually, internet has caused a lot of problems, but not maybe the extent as we thought it would be, or it is I thought it would be. So there is that element in there, generally speaking, but within the context of this conversation, because we're talking about servant leadership, and I mean, actually, this is not a reaction. This is just a question that I have as a reaction. So if the ChatGPT becomes a part of our leadership, then does that mean that what will happen to servant leadership if actually the artificial intelligence become a part of our work? Like, for example, in my work, I mean, I'm a servant facilitator for the group. So if I start getting, being dictated by what ChatGPT says about how I speak to the communities, does that maybe cross the boundary of being servant facilitator? I don't know. Maybe how much AI is our servant and how much it will dominate us. Maybe there's a fear there. I don't know.
Good way of looking at it. Yeah.
Well, this is deep, and I don't think I think it would require more time to really respond in depth. I've been doing a lot of reading about AI stuff. And I do have a lot of concerns about it, especially when so many of the scientists who are developing it have expressed their concerns. And I also think that we need to make some distinctions, because we have a lot of AI already, and the most inspiring things I read were ones that were talking about the alignment issue. Like, how can we, and maybe this connects with what you were saying, Yashin, how can we ensure that if we create things that are more intelligent than human beings, that they will actually have human welfare at heart, right? And they call that the alignment issue. And the thing is, Schmachtenberger and others have been pointing out that we do not have a society that is aligned. We don't have a society that overall has human well-being at heart, and that capitalist, extractive, profit-oriented society is the one that is creating AI. So it's very easy to think, oh, we can use these new powers for good. It's like, yes, we could use these new powers for good. And realistically, given how power is currently being used in our society, how likely is that? So the metaphor that I like to use is, we have a phone here. How many of us are using all of the capacities of our phone currently? Like, would you say that, right? So do we really, really, really need a more powerful phone? Or could we use the current AI capacities that we have and figure out how to make the world a better place with those, rather than developing even more powerful forms that the scientists themselves are saying could really pose a danger to humanity? So I just want to be a little bit more nuanced, because the moment that you express a concern, it's easy to get identified as a Luddite, anti-technology, et cetera person, right? So how can we say, let's use the technology we have to help feed people, to help clothe people, to help give everybody a wonderful life. And let's put a halt, as the AI scientists are recommending, on the development of ever more powerful forms that would tend to exacerbate potentially the already existing wealth inequality, already existing maldistribution of power, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's my generic thing on AI. It doesn't respond very specifically to what you said, Steve, but I just want to say total admiration for your willingness to wade into that swamp.
Yeah.
I do think there's a generative way we can approach this, and it will help us evolve. If you look at, I asked ChatGPT, how are calculators, when they were introduced, similar to what people are concerned about and criticizing with ChatGPT? It did a wonderful job of like saying people were all kinds of concerned about what the calculator was going to do to the human being, and how it was going to hurt people and hurt society and hurt business when it came out. It's really interesting. Hey, Ryan.
Yeah. So again, like Rosa, I want to go way deep into this, but I think there's a constraint around it. But you talked about the industrial age. What was the purpose of the industrial age writ large is to make things more convenient. We have made things more and more convenient to do things with our hands, right? And then for the calculators are great. So that makes the calculator makes it convenient to do things with our minds, to outsource that, to abdicate our authority of arithmetic, right, or navigation of a piece of paper. But now I think in kind, and I don't think it's people don't want to think, right, or the students don't want to think. I think it is so convenient to outsource that thinking. So we've gone from making it more convenient to do things, to now it's now convenient to have someone else do my thinking for me.
I think
right?
yeah. When you go to the neuroscience, Ryan, the book that I really like is Thinking Slow and Fast.
Yeah.
And in there, they talk a lot about, I like how in one section, he summarizes the idea that thinking with executive function is work. You got to slow down, you got to think, you can't be impatient. and you got to apply rules and you got to do certain things. And some people, and I think what we did in the industrialized education system is we taught people to be comfortable not using their executive function. We taught them to follow, because if you use your executive function, you have to create, you have to find
right.
contrasts, you have to deal with dilemmas, you are connecting dots, you are seeing patterns. And that takes using your eyes and ears and everything to notice and pay attention. And so we've trained, it's amazing, right? During the most important developmental time of the executive function of the brain, between 0 and 25, we've been training brains to be atrophied into a place of not thinking in executive function ways. That's what we have been doing. But it worked because we treated, because in doing that, then when you walk into a factory and they say, do it that way, and you go, but the machines, I hear a clink and something's not working and there's a drip over there. Don't worry about it. Get the shit out the door, do your stuff. So I check all the stuff at the door, my head, heart, mind, body, spirit, emotion at the door. And then I do lines of cocaine on the hoods of cars as they come down the line. Me and my coworkers, that's why drugs are a big issue in factory settings, because we numb ourselves in our ability, we entertain ourselves in other creative ways. And we create drama and we create all kinds of stuff. And now that they're getting drugs out of the workplace, what's being replaced? Anger, frustration, fighting. If you go back to the Tavistot's original work on the long wall method of coal getting, it gave birth to socio-technical systems. You go back to that original research, all kinds of societal level, community level, psychological, individual and team level problems began to emerge the minute they introduced the long wall method of coal getting, which was a mechanized, industrialized way to do it. But those people were not being taught in an education system that taught them to turn their brain off. So they were having those problems. Now we created, so our solution was to create an education system that could create people that could work in that type of environment. So now we've created a society, just like North Korea can do, where people believe things as a reality that aren't real.
The North Korea example is kind of scary to me, because I have seen in my own family, in my personal life, the thing that scares me most about AI, and that is the comfortability with having something else manage you and control you. There are a number of people that after the Berlin Wall fell, in some ways, myself included, now what the expletive do I do? Everything used to be set. Everything used to be like, these are the lines that Theo Stiegler expected for the first near decade and a half of his life, that these educational opportunities were not available to me because of the context of living under a communist government. I was like, oh, wow. So, but for a lot of people, like, I've talked to folks in my family, like, I want that structure back. I miss being told what to do. Not in those exact words, maybe basically that's what they were saying. They felt lost. They became depressed. The main reason for the astronomical rise of neo-fascism in East Germany is because the formal structures, the former structures had been removed, and people said, give me some new structure. Oh, I'm supposed to be proud to be a German. I'm supposed to follow this kind of, yep, let's do it, because I'm comfortable in that. I'm willing to do that. So to me, what you're describing, Steve, in who are going to be the people managed by AI, there's going to be very many people very comfortable with having that happen to them. Content even.
Mm-hmm.
Rose, you had a real response to what Theo just said. You're on mute.
Well, I mean, I don't think capitalism is a very good alternative to communism, but I don't think that means that people don't want to be free. I think that there is this balance of freedom and constraints, which is interesting that the conversation is kind of coming back here. People talk about how traditional cultures were very constraining because there was the church and the community's expectations, et cetera, et cetera. But I think it's also like orienting. There's an orienting framework. And I think that the orienting framework of being a consumer and just, dying with that, whoever dies with the most toys wins, is not a very comforting container or structure or right. And so I think culturally we are between stories, and yes, sometimes, the devil is better than the devil you don't know. But I think that we need context. I think we need narratives. I think we need some level of structure that provides an optimal balance.
Right. Rose, isn't it really? Yeah, it's so fascinating. I love this. I'm gonna have to go because I got to go meet my co-authors to read this to them. So thank you for diving into this with me. I appreciate it. I tried to ask ChatGPT to write this for me, but it couldn't. So
Yeah.
I felt worthwhile in this moment. So
We are serving the role of ChatGPT for you. You're welcome.
Yeah, right, exactly. Love you all. I'll see you all.
See you
time.
next month.
See you. Bye, Ethan.
Thank you all so
I
much.
want to just take a moment of our time, if we got it, to follow up on what Rosa just said, because we're together because we're writers.
I'm so sorry. I also have a meeting. It's 4:00 here, and so I'm going to say goodbye
Okay.
too. I'll join next month too. Bye bye.
I'll try to hold that thought till next month, but I won't. I want to say it that we're
still rolling.
If we're between stories, who's writing the next story? Who's developing that narrative that will free us from the ones that we're stuck in? And we have honored people like my mentor, Peter Vale, because they were starting to tell a very different story about organization development and change, about managerial leadership. They didn't get all as far as they wanted to, like Ed Schein and others, right up to their last breath. They're trying to change the narrative to focus on something that I think we're drawn to, which is the power of individual discretion and conversation, and how people can open things up and make things happen with something like that. If we don't have the story that we can tell collectively as My Library and Nexus for Change folk, who the hell is? Who's doing it? If we find them, we should join them. And because there's a big new story to tell, and it is about us in AI, but I'm all for HI, human intelligence. I think that's our domain.
I actually have a lot of hope with the students that I teach, and seeing them sort of having light bulb moments of small collaboration here, synergy over there.
Yeah,
that
pops up.
ChatGPT can't do that. So
No. Well,
we have witnessed the birth of this life form, and for good or for ill, we are the gods of this being, that it came into existence, of our making. So, for good or for ill, we need to midwife these babies into our world in a way that is humane, so that we might live with them in this way. So, and who's going to write the story? I think who needs to sing the song and have that song amplified and distributed, and the movie to be written, and because it's the way the people who are growing up into this society, the way they consume that.
yeah.
Right. How do we tell that story in a way that sing the song that makes them want to dance,
We'll give Beyond the last word. Ryan the last word. Well, thanks, guys.
have a wonderful rest of
Good
your
luck on your
Thursday.
move to Cambridge, Rosa.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate that.
Maybe you'll be there on our next jam.
Hopefully so.
And have a safe trip back to your home base, Lisa.
I will. It's a good drive because I sing the whole way, Ryan.
Now,
Ah,
I have to ask you real quick, has your mother set you straight on everything you should know and do?
Has
at least-
mine?
Yeah. Isn't that what moms are supposed to do when you visit?
Mm,
Pretend you're 18?
Within just my generic actions, I think how many times that I'm here that she asked me what I do,
Okay,
and I've
there you
even
go.
written it down a couple times.
Oh.
But I mean, in general context, yeah, she puts the guardrails up.
That's good.
Yeah, yeah,
All
have a
right.
beautiful day all. I gotta jump.
Thanks, Dale.
yeah.
See you
Bye-bye.
next.
Thank
soon.
you, Dave. Thank you, Teo. Thank you, Lisa.
Bye,
Bye.
bye, Rosa.